So I discovered that on the iPad, yes, the project names are too long. I have to remove some of the letters and add more emoji.
You don't know. It's now called Emoji.
Emoji.
It's like from Emoji. It's like from Latin.
Ah, okay.
It's not emojis. It's Emoji.
Ah.
One emoji, two emoji. Hello, I'm Radek.
I'm Michael.
And this is the podcast.
A sounding board for interesting ideas and insights. We discuss books we read and want to share with you,
as well as technology and productivity, which is what we do by day working on our app, Nozbe.
Or whatever else comes to mind.
Okay, so it's the end of January, or maybe it will be February actually when we publish? No, it will still be January, but...
Till January, yes.
It sounds like the perfect time to discuss the New Year planning because, doing things on time.
Yeah, but, the thing is that it's like a pattern for me that I do the planning in the whole January, for the whole year. And last year was the same. And I think it's fine because, when January comes, it hits you hard very often after Christmas. You have lots of catching up to do. But on the other hand, you have to make time to plan new things. And if you don't do it over Christmas, which happens to me every time because I go to my hometown and there's really no time for me to just get away from family and from eating. So in the end, I find myself planning the year like at the end of January to have the plan. And in this episode, we'll talk about this, and I will even mention why, in my case, it makes even more sense to finish the planning at the end of January.
Yeah, for me, it's nice to do it just on the edge between 2 years. For me, usually the way I plan my time off from work and whatnot, I do have time in the 2 weeks around New Year to do the annual review. And there is an advantage to doing it then because a new year feels like a new beginning, and a new beginning just sort of it's arbitrary, but psychologically it's much easier to make changes in your life and decide on new things when you feel like it's a new beginning, right? Because there's sort of a clean slate that you can follow. But of course, in the end, it is arbitrary, and it's much better to spend more time on it if you need to, and do it later or earlier, but do it right, do it well, because you might spend many weekends over the whole January to do it, but then you will reap benefits for the next 11 months.
I mean, this is something we have been highlighting in this show for quite a while, is that we really don't appreciate how few minutes a week we spend planning and thinking and stopping, for a while. And we need that. And especially that's why I take this January really easy, because I know that I need the time to plan this. I need the time for feedback loops, that we'll discuss this. And this way, at the end of January, I want to have a plan that's been, really worked well. That's why I'm not stressing too much about January, because I know that we have still 11 months to go. And I prefer to take my time in January rather than have a crappy plan and just, be running, circles the whole year long. So that's why I think we just forget how much time we really need to stop and really review things.
So are you 100% finished with your review?
90%, because some of the things I need to still run through my direct reports in Nozbe, but I'm 90% done. So it's very, very close to done. And I have my last interviews with a few people from my team today. But the vision is already there. It's all written down. So it's really just 90%. Now for me, it's just a few things I need approval from my direct reports.
Okay, so can you give me an estimate of how much time did you spend on the review, on the reviewing things and making plans and iterating and just contemplating this stuff? Okay,
so I would say I spent, just on my things and on my ideas, I spent around 10 hours, I think total, like deep work, 10 hours, this kind of thing. But of course, I was thinking in between about this. So it's not, it's a lot more than that. But additionally, I did a different approach, an additional approach this year, which we'll discuss a little bit later, that involves talking to other people from the team to get some feedback before I announce the plans. And this feedback cost me more than 10 hours because I had to speak to everyone and for at least an hour. So I did additional feedback loops from people from my team to make sure that I have the right plan.
Okay, I guess I spent more time on it. I spent something on the order of 20 hours, but that's partly because like I started doing related but not really things. I started reviewing my finances for the year and whatnot. I started making changes to the system that take time now, but then will be easier in the next years to like gather some data, some stats and whatnot. So that's why. But it was on the order of 20 hours total, maybe 15, 20 hours spread across, I think, 5 sessions. So quite a lot of time. But I think, a lot of people think that stuff like this, reviewing, thinking about this stuff, planning is sort of a waste of time. It's like, it's bureaucracy of sorts. Like it's something to be avoided. But I don't think it's the same thing. I think people in today's world don't have nearly enough time, have like an order of magnitude too little time to think, just to think. And humans are not good at thinking fast, so having a lot of space to, to think about things and not rush them into completion, to me, as far as I can tell, this is a very good investment in terms of like what I gain from it, like also in time, to having spent this much time reviewing the year and then doing the weekly reviews as well.
Well, I would say I did 10 hours of deep work and then now 10 hours of interviews, but I was thinking about it a lot in between, and that's why But I was writing down scribbles all over the place. I still have to process my mind map, which I did when I was doing the interviews. When I was doing the interviews, I did all the notes in the mind map. I love this kind of note taking. And now I'm using the MindNote app on my iPad, and so I think in total, when once I finish the last 10%, the last 10% will also take me just, I think, around 5-6 hours to just finish it off and also talk through this with my direct reports and then later my team. So it's gonna be even more. But we'll discuss this. But I incorporated a lot of more feedback loops than last year, and I will stress it a little bit later when we discuss this.
Okay, so the plan for today's episode is we talk about our 2017 in review. We'll skip over some details, but we wanted to sort of give this as context for our plans for 2018, and then after 2017, like highlights from 2017. We wanted to mention some of our plans for 2018 and more importantly, like how we approach it differently than before. So if you haven't listened to those before, definitely check out the last 3 episodes where we discussed some of the bigger sort of ideas that motivated like changes in how we do our annual reviews, and the episode from a year ago where we discussed the general process, which hasn't changed. So we're not going to discuss this again.
All right. So let's start with 2017 then, how it went. So let's focus on the highlights, I think, the good, the bad, the ugly. But what would you start with?
So I would start with a little bit of context for me, that planning 2017 was challenging for me. I didn't have a very specific, like this one theme or one goal. Because in a few previous years, and in 2016 in particular, I had like a few very obvious personal projects, like these big goals, like these keystone things that I knew that this is a thing that's sort of missing in my life, and I need to get better at this, and this will make big changes. So in 2016, this was starting to read a lot, 30 books a year, losing 15 kilograms, starting to be more physically active. I started going to the gym and whatnot, and finally establishing a proper morning routine. And that's what 2016 was about. And like after getting all of that more or less done, planning 2017 didn't have as much clarity. And so a lot of things that happened were sort of unplanned, and a lot of my goals were about sort of keeping up with those habits.
Yeah, for me it was similar, and now that in hindsight, I can see that my goals for 2017 were a bit too vague.
Mm-hmm.
I was struggling to be focused on just a few goals, but just do them right. I was trying to as well maintain lots of things, lots of habits. I think I did also well with reading, with fitness, and I did get new habits, like really. The magic spreadsheet. So really we'll link in the show notes, to really be religious about it, like you like you are, and to really monitor my things. Also, of course, the morning routine, the evening routine. Now this is like a no-brainer for me anymore. This is really great, and many other things. So I did do well on the habit side of things. But because of that, I didn't. I think I spread myself too thin with particular goals, and that's why being focused on the habits and yet having that many goals was just too much. And one of the lessons learned from last year, and that's why I read The Essentialism by Greg McKeown again in the between the years to really understand the idea of trade-offs and of doing less but better. And that's why for this year I'm planning less stuff but better. And so this was like one of the biggest lessons learned for me.
Okay, so I'll start with two or three things, like the unexpected things, the things that I didn't plan but happened anyway in 2017. One of them was learning Spanish, which happened after the trip to Spain and Panama, and then talking to you, and then I did Duolingo in 60 days. We've talked about it in too much detail, and we'll put the link to the show notes about how to send about, and like a lot of things we've learned about learning languages. We'll put the links in the show notes. Another thing that sort of came up was this whole big project to simplify life, simplify setup, simplify all sorts of systems and habits. We've also talked about it a lot, but some of the things that it involved was I moved many of my systems and habits, things I do every day, to not rely on the Mac and not rely on the paper, but to be iPhone only. So planning the day, planning the week, doing the magic spreadsheet, all of that is iPhone only. Moving to be paperless, so all of the documents, all of my accounting, all of that is paperless, using ScanBot and other systems to do that. We've discussed this. Tons of automation, workflow, app automators, smart checklists in Nozbe, improving my physical setup, my office, getting rid of a ton of notifications, distractions, just sort of moving to have less stuff that doesn't matter in my life. We've also last week discussed this, you sort of realizing you need a bit of a better information diet. And speaking of which, the thing I definitely didn't expect of 2017 is I quit Twitter.
Well, you didn't quit it for good. You're not using it as much, or you did quit it for good?
Well, to me it feels like quitting. By quitting, I mean like in the same sense as you. Well, maybe that's not a perfect metaphor, but it's like I quit smoking and now I do Twitter only once for only once a week, and it actually feels this way. Like it's I don't feel this sort of tug of Twitter sort of addictive, compulsive behavior. I don't feel like I need to be there. It doesn't give me that much dopamine anymore. It's just a place I check out once a week, and I don't feel like I need more. So in that sense, I quit Twitter. I'm there, but like literally once a week and not 5 times a day.
All right. So in my case, your research for going paperless, which we discussed in the previous show, made me realize that I actually should rethink my setup for going paperless. And inspired by your ideas, I started using your solutions and to check out how they work. So the ScanBot, I'm using Apple Notes more. I'm trying to distinguish which kind of documents go where, to which app or to which system. So that's good. So I'm not using Evernote that much anymore. I'll see if I'll still be an Evernote user, but I'll see what's the place of Evernote in the future for me. So so with that, it was important and really set up my workflows well. I really did set up my workflows well now that I have. It's so easy for me to do the journaling, morning routines, all these things, tracking my productivity. So I'm really tracking religiously every day how much I work, not how much I am, not how much my body is in the home office, but how much I really work. So I track my deep work, I track my shallow work, and I track my meetings. Of course, this week will be off the charts as I have so many meetings, but it's normally it's fine. So these things, yes, and also. Last year reminded me how long-term thinking is important. So last year was a medical year. Wasn't a very good year for our company. I mean, it was fine. We did well, but we didn't have growth, and revenue-wise. We actually had a little bit less revenue than the year before, which was a little bit worrying for us. But we invested in our company a lot. We hired new people, and we also changed the pricing of Nozbe. So it's not ad for Nozbe. I just want to explain the logic behind it. So we realized that the pricing also communicates how we want people to use Nozbe, and we thought that the pricing that we had before didn't communicate well, that we want some people to use Nozbe by themselves, but some people can really reap the benefits of Nozbe by using them in small teams and in big teams. And this is how we are using Nozbe in our team. And this is how many of our users use that. But many of them didn't realize that they can actually move Nozbe to a more team environment, not only use it by themselves. So with the pricing change, we kind of showed it to the people. And we did it at the end of the year. So I think, introduced new pricing at the end of November. And already December and January are a lot better than last year's. I mean, than the previous year's ones. So we already see an improvement there. And we see also better customer sat of these people.
Oh, no. Don't get me started on customer sat.
I couldn't help myself.
The customer sat with iOS 7 is really off the chart.
So people are happier, and people see that the difference, and people are seeing, I can use it with my team, and I can use it like that, and how can I use it? So we changed kind of the communication, and we have improved this. So again, this reminded me that you work on something, because we worked on the pricing for half a year. So we worked on something for quite a long time. You put it there, and you reap the benefits in a few months, not right away. And this is something which any entrepreneur or any person working for customers should know in hindsight, that there is no short-term thinking, because short-term you can really you can make a short-term promotion or something like that to improve the bottom line. But the long-term stuff, this is important. So even if the year wasn't as good financially for us, but we did some investments, we are going to reap the benefits this year. Not that year.
And there are so many things that we're still in the process of investing. Once it's out,
and we cannot share it yet, and how much we invested last year in that, and how much we're investing now. So this is something, again, going for the long run, going in the long term, and we are about to celebrate our 11th birthday of Nozbe. So we know we are here for the long haul. And that's why we're not afraid about it. But what I'm just saying is that when you review a year, and the year and some of the statistics and indications were not positive, or were not 100% positive or 100% nice, you think, okay, this was a crappy year. Well, it was kinda in some aspects, and for example on the marketing side, I'm sure it was a crappy year, and we could have done a better job. But in many other aspects, we invested in something that we're going to reap the benefits later. So it's really important to to be conscious of the fact that it's a long-term game.
Yeah, that's definitely right. And even for me right now, like this is a big thing of doing the review and planning the year. And as part of planning the year, and we've talked about it, a year ago when we discussed our process for annual review, like one thing that's useful to do is just sort of briefly in very rough terms, think about what happens next, not in this year, but even after that, that then gives you ideas for what to plan for this year, right? And even like for this year, I have plans which are like burst projects which are on hold, which I won't do until the third or fourth quarter of the year. But I realize that they're there and I want to do them. And to be able to do them, there are some steps I'm already taking now in January, just sort of laying groundwork that has to be done months in advance. Very sort of not a lot of work, but has to be done in advance. And so this is the big thing of doing the review, is that because you spend time thinking about this and planning, you start seeing connections that you could have missed and then be like, oh man, why didn't I think of this 4 months ago? Well, because you didn't plan it. All right, but I don't want to get too distracted from our highlights of 2017.
So for me, the absolute highlight of last year was the realization that once you get these habits right, which we discussed last year, that you want to be a better version of yourself, you should plan for the habits, like how you want to get something done. And even though I've really missed lots of goals, the habits that I've managed to put in place are right now for me enable me to do greater things. So yes, I have to correct the goals, I have to correct my estimates, and I have to correct my optimism about the quantity of the goals. But the habits I have make this transition seamless, make this transition easy, because I don't have to worry about these habits anymore. I got this, I got them, and I'm introducing a few more new habits this year. But as we discussed in the previous show, the other habits don't have to be on 100% all the time, but they're there, and as long as I'm tracking them, I'm fine. And so for me, again, it's long-term thinking. I got these habits right, so I know that in the long term, I'm just gonna reap the benefits again from these habits. So and there are a few of these, like we mentioned the routines, the thing I'm flossing now. I'm regularly training now. It's like all these things that I had to focus a lot to make them natural for me are now natural. They're just there, and they don't cost me that much of cognitive load to do them again. So I love it, and it enabled me also to focus on different things when playing this year.
Yeah, it might seem strange and arcane to most people to focus so much thinking about habits and setting up these systems, but the thing is that it's a foundation. Like, you master it, you invest in it once, and then just a relatively small amount to keep it up, and it's a foundation that you build on top, that it just enables you to do things that weren't possible if you didn't have that foundation. Well, speaking of habits, in some areas like here, I didn't do as well as the previous year, but I have the data, and so I've been tracking those habits, like some of them first in the spreadsheet, and then in the Productive app, the habit tracking app for iOS, and that's sort of interesting to see, because it shows you that we tend to overestimate how good we are with some things. So, for example, a goal is for me to wake up at 8 o'clock every day. So for me, that's the definition of wake up early. And I've done that 64% of the time, which is surprising, because that seems like not a lot. Like, I thought it's going to be like 70 or 80%, well, more like 80 or 85%. But, naturally we tend to overestimate, and in reality it's just 64%. And I'm not too... I don't feel too bad about it, because I see the pattern. Like the thing about habits is like I want to focus on consistency and not maximization. Like I don't do the 8 o'clock every day. Like there's some days where I fail, but there have been very few instances where I would fail badly, as in wake up and do the snooze and then go back to sleep, which is like the worst thing I could do. Like usually there's a reason, or it's related to travel. That's why I've been much worse in the second half of the year. But it's the second year that I've been really doing the morning routine. So that's still good. I've also changed here. Like previously my goal was to like get to work by 9, and now I've actually established the routine of waking up at 8 and then getting to work at 8:30, which is like a new thing for me to start work this early, and it feels really good. I was trying as part of the morning routine to read paper books or Kindle books in the morning, and I did that until July, and I had like 55% success rate. I dropped it. I decided, okay, you know what? I actually prefer to get to work earlier. Since November, I've been tracking if I start work without distraction. So if I actually get to work at 8:30 and start from my most important task, my frog, and not like checking out Slack or checking out Twitter. And since November, like it's a new thing, and it's been 80% successful, so that's good. And 78% of the time, I was planning the next day and updating the Magic spreadsheet on the same day. I've been tracking that since July, so that's pretty good.
Yeah, I haven't been that religious about tracking for most of the year. I've been on and off on the Magic spreadsheet for much of the year, but in November, when I came back after my 1 week holidays in my hometown, I just put myself to it. I created new workflows to do it, and this way I managed to. I started really tracking this, and for me, for example, my main goal. We discussed this in I think I don't remember when, but it was like a long time ago. Is the fact of how much time I'm spending in deep work, all right? To track deep work. And I decided to track 3 things, meetings, deep work, and shallow work. And in my case, the minimum I want to hit, which is already quite a lot, is 10 hours of meetings, 10 hours of deep work, and 10 hours of shallow work. So 30 hours a week of work. So really, like, I would say, like the lawyers would call it billable hours, like really good work, not just being in the office, and then everything above that is a bonus. So if I get to 40 hours or something.
But it's kind of funny that you as the boss sort of, there is this admission that in reality, even though we're at the office, we do less work than we think, and the time sort of goes away, and 30 hours a week is sort of the goal, like not 40 as you'd expect, because in reality some of that time is just disappears magically.
Remember when we discussed this, you admitted that you have 3 hours, 3 good hours a day or 4 good hours a day when you get to it. So if you think about that, this would be like 20 hours a week, and I'm hitting for 30. Which is already like above the average, right? So since I've been tracking these 30 hours from November on, I can see that some of the weeks I hit the number. I hit even more than 30 hours. Sometimes I hit only 25 or even less than 25 hours of billable work, of really good work. So this is good because on every weekly review, I can review that. I can see how my week went, and I can just make sure that I can plan the week better to make sure that I hit my goal. So I'm not beating myself about it, but it's good to track it.
Yeah.
Because now I have every week I see improvements, and I think this year I'm gonna hit my goal of 30 hours a week. Better.
Yeah, it's super important to track and have a good way of tracking so that it's not a pain in the butt, so that it's super easy. And also why I moved all of that to iPhone, so I can do that anytime, right? And so like I track a bunch more stuff. Like I track my weight, and the average weight for the year was 71.6 kilograms, which is just a tiny bit more than last year. But then, you analyze the data a bit more, which is like super easy in numbers. And it's like 2016 after February when I hit my sort of the 70 kilograms, the average
all-time low.
Yeah, the average after that was 70.7 kilogram, and the second half of 2017 was 72.4 kilograms. So actually, that's almost 2 kilograms difference. So there is like it's not perfect, but then you have the data and then you can analyze what you think about it. So this is what we discussed sort of last week, that this is the second year of me being not overweight or borderline overweight, like losing 15 kilograms. Like this is a big difference. So 2 kilograms here, 2 kilograms there. As long as I track this, it's not that important, because the longer I do this in general, like this new sort of baseline, not the perfect point, but the baseline, the easier it is to keep it up, because it sort of changes you forever. I've also I've tracked 57 workouts in 2017, like proper workouts. So that's about once a week. That's not a lot. I've done 90 in 2016. I'm not as consistent. But in general, I'm still pretty physically active. I'm okay with that, right? I've done 20 books and not 34, but this has been the third year that I do audiobooks in general, and that made a big difference. This sort of new baseline and not hitting the peak. So even though I didn't hit those, I didn't exactly hit the goal of maintaining my habits perfectly, it's still fine.
Yeah, I'm also tracking my weight, and I lost weight in 2014. I lost 10% of my body weight, and since then I was maintaining more or less okay. But in the last year, it just went a little bit too far. So I started this year at 72 kilograms, which is overweight for me. And the thing that I did is what I did last 4 years ago. I started, a slow carb diet, and a slow carb diet, which is easy for me to do because I know it. I know how to. I mean, I just have to adjust a little bit, more firmly my current eating habits. So it's not like I have to change everything I do about eating right now. I just have to adjust more my eating habits to be more strict about it. And I've been doing this for the last 3 weeks, and it's going very well. I'm below 70 already, and I want to keep it up. And as a side bonus, I'm learning to eat new stuff. I'm discovering new meals. So again, a habit I've learned 4 years ago. Right now, easy. Really no problem. I'm gonna lose my weight. I'm gonna be at the end of March 66, which is my goal, and then for the next 4 or 5 years I should be fine. And as long as I'm tracking it and keeping it in check, I should be fine, and I am fine. So it's good.
Yeah. Another thing I failed at, well, that's one interpretation, is the project of deliberate practice. So when I said at the beginning that I sort of had just only fuzzy ideas for 2017, that was one of the concrete ones. Like I really wanted to establish this habit of every week on Friday during our TGIF, like in the show notes for explanation, I would spend, pretty much all of the day practicing something deliberately, learning a new skill. And as such, I didn't achieve it. But this is why it's important that the plan is just an artifact, but the planning is important, and the keeping up of the planning is important. So you do the annual review, but then every week and every month, every quarter, you revise the plan based on new inputs. So I failed to establish this exact thing as this structure in my life, and yet 2017 was one of the most productive years of my life in terms of learning new things. I've learned many new programming skills through deliberate practice in 2 months. Like in the 2 months where this actually was working, I've learned like 6 big new things that I needed to learn for the #Secret project. And then for the rest of the year, through the work on #Secret project, I've improved my programming skill considerably, right? And then I also was thinking of, I didn't have high goals for my blog or for conferences, but I thought maybe just one blog post or one conference talk this year. And I didn't do that. But again, like when you revise it, this is fine because based on the work I've been doing in 2017 and I continue doing now, for the end of 2018, I definitely have multiple really good ideas for talks and conferences. And also, speaking of conferences and travel, that was an area that was sort of unexpected in 2017, because in 2016 I've done a lot of travel for my standards anyway, and it felt like really overwhelming to do this many travels. And I planned for 2017 to do less, and of course I did more because. Things just popped up. So I've done 12 trips in 2017, and in total, I've done 86 days in travel. So for a quarter of the year, I was away from home. And when I counted up, those days from the calendar, I was really surprised because it didn't feel like I was away from home for a quarter of my year, but I was. And I was in 8 different countries in like 17 different cities. And what's changed, what I didn't expect, what happened sort of by accident is I've started really learning how to travel easily, how to travel like really in a really minimalist way and in such a way that it doesn't overwhelm me. And as we've discussed 2 weeks ago, like I get easily overwhelmed. Like I like things to be my way, and so traveling in the past was just really a lot for me, but it was a matter of sort of improving the system, right? And I've now have the whole sort of packing system, the whole way of doing travel, which involves like very little preparation. And so one thing I did a lot in 2017 was not only just these like big complicated trips abroad, but I've really grown to like this tiny bit of nomadic lifestyle. I started doing a lot of traveling across Poland, like being in different cities and doing these combo trips that I go from one city to another for a week or something, like just because it's fun, because I can, like because this is a benefit I can reap from working remotely, that I can be anywhere and I can spend time with friends in person that I normally wouldn't get to see very often. And I can not take any time off, continue working. I mean, I was 86 days in travel, and I can take like 20 days off during the year. So that was really great. And the last thing I want to mention for 2017, which was unexpected, and also help with travel, is #iPad only. And this is your fault, of course. I moved from being iPad skeptic to like from being very ambivalent about iPads to being really mad about iPad in the same way I'm mad about the Mac, which is to say, it really annoys me all of the time, but only because I care.
Yeah, if we rewind to the conversations we had, just a year ago, when you were just trolling me that I was using this inferior machine for stuff, and good times. So I'm happy about that. So one thing that really a highlight that I would already move to New Year was the quarterly offsites. So I started doing quarterly offsites in 2016, again, the fault of Greg McKeown of Essentialism. And in 2017, we discussed it. We discussed this concept. We will link in the show notes. And I did them regularly, and you too, I think, last year. And what happened was that in our reunion, NOSBI reunion, when we meet, because in our company, we meet twice a year, we mentioned that. And we mentioned that it would be fun for the whole company not to have just TGIF, so to have great Fridays and have weekly reviews, but to do quarterly offsites, so that everyone on the team who wants to could do an optional quarterly offsite. So really think about the last quarter, plan the next quarter. And we did a trial run in October with my direct reports, and it was fun. It was for them kind of discovering how to review the last quarter, how to plan the new quarter. It was fun, and what happened was that this year, this January, the whole team did that. I'm not sure if everyone, but on my team, on marketing team, everyone did that, and everyone from my direct reports did that. And this was like this additional stone, this additional thing that I did this year. So I did my draft of plan for this year, and after that, now I'm having individual talks with the people from my team, from my marketing team, and with my direct reports. And with that, before each individual meeting, they are sending me their quarterly offsite. So their conclusions from their quarterly offsites. And it's amazing. They are all discovering this and they love it. And I'm learning new things about them. And my direct report, they are like the directors of Nozbe, they are really happy about it. They're really thrilled about it. And I get an additional feedback loop because now, after these individual talks, after reading each and everyone's quarterly offsite, I learned so much more that during this week of chats, I'm readjusting my plan. That's why my plan is not 100% ready yet, because I've been tweaking and readjusting it based on the feedback I got and based on the quarterly offsites people did. Because on the quarterly offsites, one of the things I can see is what really people want to do. Like what are their goals for next three months? But not only their goals for the next 3 months, their aspirations, where they want to be, what they want to achieve. And with that, I can tweak the system. I can tweak the team. I can see who should be doing more of something and less of something, and the other way around. And it's amazing. Now I see that it was this missing piece of the puzzle. That one thing is me, the boss, doing a plan, but then doing the whole week of marathon meetings and quarterly offsites reading to tweak the plan and to really adjust it for the team. And the idea is that next week I'm going to propose the plan, already after all the feedback. So I got this almost ready, and I'm really excited. I'm really pumped about the plan for this year. And next week I'm going to ask for like additional feedback based on what I've learned. But so there are two discoveries. Thanks. The quarterly offsite was a success. People loved it, and people again thanked me for giving them in working hours a moment to reflect. And second, I've learned a lot. I've learned a bunch about my team, which I thought I knew so well, and now I can have a better plan for this year.
It's really interesting how over time you see good ideas that you and I were experimenting with and established in our personal lives. Over time, they have this tendency to move to the company life of Nozbe as well. Like it's sort of here, like you and I is this sounding board and like this experimentation ground to see how this works and like if it really is that useful. And then we realize that doing a week review every week is just crucial, and it shouldn't be just the two of us and maybe Rafał sometimes doing it for ourselves, but it should be everyone doing it like in the context of work in particular, right? And the TGIF was partially inspired by the fact that I tried to have this 1 day a week where I would focus on like personal projects and learning stuff. And now the quarterly review, or the personal quarterly offsite, to use Greg McKeown's phrasing, good times. Like it's good to see what we've established to be very powerful, useful tools and just very good habits, and people slowly starting to pick it up. And I hope that there's going to be more of that, because there's more in terms of like deliberate practice and such that I wish more people followed and more people like truly take advantage of TGIF for deliberate practice and not just learning on the job, which isn't always enough. But yeah, so 2017, was it a success?
Well, yes and no. For many things, didn't work out as much as I hoped they would. But as we said, we established some ground rules, some good best practices. It wasn't a success for me because I realized that I planned too many goals, as I mentioned before. And one of the lessons learned is planning less stuff. So and putting using GTD methodology, naming. Having a deliberate goal called someday maybe, and just having great ideas and then putting them there, not acting on them now, and I do it more often now. I do it through in every weekly review. When I have a new idea, I put it there. I put a new task in the someday maybe project goal, and then I pour my heart in the comment, as a to describe the whole thing, what I want to do. I get excited and whatever, and then I leave it there to incubate. And then, but I know that it's not priority now, and maybe it is, but when it is, it has to be a deliberate choice. And another thing that I've learned the hard way last year, and I'm putting it right now, as I said, I'm planning right now, to shuffle a little bit the team. I see that again, there are trade-offs. So if I want to do more of that, less of that has to be done in the other department. So I have to really be conscious about this. So when I'm planning right now for quite a few people, I'm planning a little bit to redefine their job description. With their consent, they want to do it actually. but the problem is that with that, I need to shuffle also that, okay, you want to do more of that, but then you have to do less of that, if that's okay with you, right? So we really have to have these conversations to realize that we cannot do more of that and more of that at the same time. No, this is not how it's supposed to go. So for me, again, planning this year, 2018, was lots about that, about trade-offs, about, okay, what can I do and what would I love to do, but I'm just going to put it for something maybe for now, because no, right now I need to do less things, but do them really well. And this was my main problem with 2017. I've done lots of things, but half-assed, basically, so halfway through. And I don't want to do that anymore. I want to really do these things and complete them and make them stick.
Speaking of overestimating our abilities, we thought we'd do 2017 in review and plans for 2018 in this one episode, but obviously this is not going to happen, so let's hope our editor will do magic to compress this episode a little bit, and we'll get back to our plans for 2018 next week.